All right, on to the last conference championship game. Oregon, 3.5 point favorite. That one holding steady. A little bit of juice depending on the book, but Bet365 still has a -110 out there on the Ducks and conversely on Penn State. Total of 49.5. James Franklin, we've all heard the narrative. Speaking of narratives, whether it's with Dabo or Kirby, so let's add on one more. 1-12 straight up against top five opponents. That's what the Ducks are. I really want to find a reason to take Penn State. Now I'm going to ruin it for our listeners and viewers. I know both of you guys are high on the Ducks relative maybe to the money line rather than laying the spread here. But the biggest question to me is there any way Penn State could generate enough pressure against Gabriel where their secondary doesn't have to hold up? Because you look at Penn State's defense, third in SP plus. They're allowing just 5 yards per dropback, but that all hinges on Abdul Carter and Penn State's defensive front and the ability to generate pressure. So Abdul Carter, 8.3% sack rate, 40.3% pressure rate. I mean, this is a dominant defensive front. If they can get after Gabriel, can they, David?
No. I mean, I'm sure they can get after him a bit. This is and it's square. It is square, square, square. But squares. Whatever. I'm square to begin with. But the squares have to win sometimes, and like sometimes, like the obvious things do happen, right? And I think this is the case. I think Oregon absolutely just beats them by a good amount. Like I'm not saying I mean Penn State's solid, right? But they're not that impressive. Like they're not at the level of Oregon. I think Oregon is the best team in college football. I love Gabriel. I mean, I think I watched all his games at Oklahoma, and I always thought he was a bit underrated there. I thought like the fan base kind of like we were spoiled a bit, right? We had all these like Heisman winners and then Jalen Hurts and all this. All of a sudden, like Gabriel's like a step below, and all of a sudden he's not good enough. And I remember when they lost to Oregon, nobody really cared. I'm like, dude, I'm like Oklahoma's gonna be in deep, deep trouble at this point. They were. So I love Gabriel. I think even if they get the pressure there, I think he's mature enough. I think he's a good enough quarterback where he's gonna be fine. I think Oregon's gonna like put up enough points there. And I think more importantly, I'm not sold on Penn State's offense at this point. That maybe I'm being a little harsh on it, but they've really they should have lost that Minnesota game. They should have lost that USC game. I know they played Ohio State kind of tough. But I don't think they're a good team. And like these again, I'm like I'm not a trends guy. I kind of believe these narratives about these coaches like losing to top five teams. I mean, like Day isn't getting it done against Michigan, right? And like Franklin has beat nobody in the top five. I mean, he's like completely struggled there. And like at some point, it's like, oh, variance is going to bounce back, all this, all that. Like maybe in the NFL that's the case, but in college, like these things do last. I mean, these things just some of these coaches just they can't get up for it. They get frankly out coached, and I think that's going to happen again here. So there's nothing on Penn State that makes me think that they're even worth a look. So I'm going to hammer Oregon, and I'm sure I'll be wrong with this much confidence. But I love this Oregon team, and I don't think the spread's high enough. I mean I don't know. Like I'm you guys are the experts, like I say on this, but I'm kind of surprised it's not a little higher to be honest.
Well, I'm not an expert in college football. I'm gonna leave that to Brett. But one, so two-parter here in terms of a quick question: money line or point spread? Are you laying the big number on the money line with Oregon, or are you laying the 3.5?
3.5.
Okay, and we talk about motivation with SMU specifically. Oregon having a chance to play for the bye in the college football playoff, but they're in if they lose. So where is that level? Like when just juxtaposed to SMU, I know apples and oranges, but you get my point.
I mean, they're Oregon's like championship or bust, right? And the only way you get there is getting the bye. I mean, they're focused. They want to win. There's enough motivation there too, right? I mean, like they came over to the Big Ten this year, right? Like there's all this, oh, the Pac-12, like the Pac-12 used to get crapped on nonstop, and the Pac-12 also, like in my opinion, used to get a lot of crap. So this is their first year in. Do they want to win the Big Ten? Um, there's enough motivation there. They want to stay the number one seed. They want to get that first round bye. They want to set themselves up on the path. They're going to come out. I mean, it's I get what you're getting at, but they're fired up, and I think by far they're just the much better team. And Gabriel. I mean, this is it too. I mean, he's a senior, right? I mean, this is his last
He's
go
like
around. So I mean,
a grad transfer, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, this is it. I mean, this is it for him. This is like one of the last sort of showcases for him and all that. So I think motivation will not be an issue for these guys. But I get where you're coming from on that.
Brett, what about you?
Can I play devil's advocate to that bye week thing really quick?
Sure.
One of my good buddies in the space here, Kelly Ford, K Ford Ratings, did put out his projections for what the current field would look like. And, Oregon gets the automatic bump to the quarterfinals because they would have the bye. But they would have a 40% chance to reach the semifinals. Penn State, despite playing a first-round game, has a 63% chance to make the semifinals. That's a 23% difference per K Ford Ratings. And even if Boise State loses and you get Arizona State in that aspect, Arizona State in his numbers are about 0.6, half a point above Boise State, so that number doesn't change very much. Do you want that bye? Is there a chance that we bet on Oregon here and that they're like, we don't want? No, I don't think so either with Dan Lanning. But it is an interesting thing that, like, and a lot of people point out the 5th seed is actually the most advantageous spot in the entire college football playoff. That's a lot of strong assumptions about who they're playing and whatnot. But I digress.
Well, that's why Ohio State was favored to win among other reasons, but they were favored to win the college football playoff a few weeks ago because they were slotted for that 5th seed against Boise.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was looking at like a Arizona State, Boise State route to the semifinals and was pretty excited for that. I wonder why that's not happening anymore. Why aren't they playing this game, guys? Just kidding. I don't want to talk about it anymore. But James Franklin, we do have to point out his record. He's 4-16 against Ohio State and Michigan in his career. He's 3-2 in New Year's Six bowl games. He did win the 2016 Big Ten championship and also notched his one top 5 win in 2016. Now, of course, that was his first year, and Penn State had very little expectation on their shoulders. Since they've had the burden of expectation, it's been downhill since then. His biggest non-conference games, Auburn, West Virginia. I know West Virginia went 9-4 last year, but we're talking about 500 teams here. He's just not a big game coach, and I'm treating Oregon just like I am Ohio State and Michigan, mostly because they beat both of those teams and should be treated as such. Some injuries for Oregon to watch. Wide receiver Tez Johnson, he did return to the lineup, which is good, but stud defensive lineman Jordan Birch, he's still TBD. I think they expect him to play. He hasn't played in a few weeks. We'll see. So the Wisconsin game aside, I'm not exactly throwing it out, but that was Oregon's 8th consecutive Big Ten conference game. These guys were exhausted. You play that game off a bye or off of 3 games, I think it's a little bit different story there. Outside of that game, Oregon wins, and they win with ease. No doubt about it. Penn State's defense might be just a little bit overstated. They did get 3 sacks on Will Howard, but 2 of those were one-on-ones with Abdul Carter taking Donovan Jackson's lunch money, and that was one of his first ever games played at left tackle. He was a guard, guys, and they moved him out to left tackle. Of course he's going to get beat by one of the probably a first-round edge rusher in Abdul Carter. So the point is that this defense just isn't getting home like you think that they should, especially with the talent up there. And Oregon's offense line is very good. Dylan Gabriel is averaging his lowest air yards per attempt, which they're just trying to get it out to their guys in space and let them win, which is working, which means he's having a low average time to throw. They're not getting home to Gabriel, no chance. And that's not even an indictment on Penn State's talent. That's just Oregon's scheme. I mean, they're going to run it in between the tackles with Jordan James with some margin of success, because we just saw Ohio State run the 5 minutes off the end of the clock, and they knew it was coming. And that happened last year, too, against Michigan, where they knew what they were going to do and just couldn't simply stop it. So I do think this Penn State defense, talented though it may be, is a little bit overstated. I think Oregon's be able to score on them. I don't think I would go into the territory saying this is a blowout, but 31-13, 31-17. I think Oregon comfortably wins. I'm all over this Oregon minus 3.5. I'd look at minus 6.5 too, to be honest.
Okay. Well, you've talked me up. Both of you have talked me off taking Penn State. My only bet for conference championship weekend is going to be UNLV and the points. Brett, summing up your card here. What do you got?
I'm taking the points at Tulane after thinking it over. I am taking the points.
Laying the points.
I'm laying the points. I'm so sorry. Laying the points at Tulane. How about this? Tulane minus 5.5. Iowa State plus 2.5. I do lean the under in the ACC championship with Clemson and SMU. And I'm laying Oregon minus 3.5. And Louisiana minus 5.5. I know we didn't talk about it today, but I like that one too.
Okay. David, what about you?
Love Oregon.
Old spread minus 20.5.
Yeah. Nah. I mean, talking into it. So on the sides, Oregon, Iowa State, UNLV, and then kind of Texas. I think it was, and then I actually am digging a lot of these unders all of a sudden now too. So again, I love Oregon. Leaning the under now on the Georgia Texas game, leaning the under on the what was that one? The Clemson game. And then I like Tulane there. As well. And then what was the other one we were talking about? SMU. Yeah, I love SMU. So listen, there's a lot of some chalk I'm eating. A little too many favorites for my liking, but at least I got UNLV.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call SMU
Iowa
chalky.
State.
Just with the perception around Clemson, to your guys' point.
They didn't open.
Yeah, But I got a couple underdogs in there too, so at least I'm not coming on here just taking all the favorites, right? I host or co-host a podcast with Helmuth and Mattisau and another guy, and like we usually give Helmuth crap because he's always picking favorites, like, and he finally picked like an under in the NFL too, like, right? And every time he takes a dog, like we're like, dude, like you finally like you realize you can get on the other side of this. And all that. So I'm glad I came on here. I'm taking a few unders. I'm taking some underdogs. So even if I go like 0-8, at least like I can pretend to be smart.
Hey, hang the banner on plus EV bets. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm an underdog better, so I could never lay 3.5 with Oregon, but I'm at least not betting Penn State. How about that?
But see, Eli, just to be on that side of it, I've actually found a lot of success this year taking those ones that are a half point over the key number because they're trying to entice people to bet the other side because they see, oh, well, I can get the full 3.5, like or the 14, like Navy Notre Dame and Army Notre Dame, when you just lay it.
Yeah, well, you got fortunate last week with USC Notre Dame, so let's not.
The ball don't lie. They did it twice.
I'll give you that.